Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to the global security, actually it's not an exaggeration to say that it is in its worst shape, putting into consideration the last 30 years. Unfortunately, this is especially true when it comes to Europe. We would not have thought, even not in our nightmares, that there would be a war in Europe in the 21st century. And we Hungarians are living in the neighborhood of the war. And we see the suffering it brings. We have received more than 1 million refugees. We see and feel the impacts in the form of the skyrocketing energy prices. And we are paying the price of this war as well in the form of an inflation which is like 10-15 times higher than it normally should be. And we pay the price, we feel the impacts, and we see the suffering even if we bear no responsibility for the war, and even that it is not our war. And I'm representing a nation, dear colleagues, members of which are dying in this war. There is a significant community of Hungarians living in Ukraine, around 150,000. And since they are Ukrainian citizens, they are being mobilized to the Ukrainian army. Many of them have been deployed to the front lines, and many of them have died already, unfortunately. And we Hungarians do not want more people to die. We don't want more Hungarians to die, but generally speaking, we don't want more people to die in our neighborhood. Therefore, we Hungarians make our full strength to argue in favor of peace. We see peace is the only solution. And peace is the only way to save lives of the people. And this is the only way to avoid further destruction. And I think that if we have a look at the last more than 1.5 years now, it's obvious that those who pretend that there's a solution at the battlefield, they are not right. There's no solution on the battlefield. There are dead people on the battlefield, and there's destruction on the battlefield. And those are not right either who say that the developments on the battlefield will improve the chance for peace. This is not true either. Every day spent in this war makes the hope for peace worse and worse. And we do believe, dear friends, dear colleagues, that the weapon deliveries do not help either. The weapon deliveries prolong the war, and we don't need war, we don't need weapons in the region. What we need in the region is peace. And in this regard, I would like to emphasize that keeping the channels of communication is vital. Keeping the channels of communication is vital, because if we block the channels of communication, then we basically give up the hope for peace. And we do not want to give up the hope for peace. And therefore, dear Bujar, I'd like to commend all of your efforts you have made in order to make this organization survive, and in order to give a chance to return to a civilized East-to-West cooperation, or if not cooperation, at least an East-to-West dialogue. And we really did have the hope that here in the wonderful city of Skopje, we could take advantage of the presence of our colleagues from Russia and the United States simultaneously. And although they are very important people, very important persons, very fully packed agenda, but we really did hope for a direct communication between them. And we regret to see that it does not take place this time either. Although I do believe that such a communication, such a direct contact, would be to the benefit of all of us, of Europe, and of the peace-loving people. So Bujar, I'd like to really thank you for all the efforts you have made in order to make this happen. And this is not your fault that it does not take place. Look, we Hungarians have suffered from a communist dictatorship for 40 years in a world which was distributed into blocks. We had the oppression from the East, and we had the ignorance from the West. And we were the losers of a world which was divided into blocks. And we don't want to come back to a stage of history when we are going to be losers again. So please do not distribute the world into blocks again. Instead of blocks, we would like to see a global cooperation. We would like to see connectivity. And we would like to see mutual respect returning to international political life. We want a civilized cooperation between East and West, out of which we could take a lot of benefit. In the recent years, dear colleagues, Europe has lost a lot of its competitiveness. The one reason for that was that the basis for European competitiveness, namely the combination of the Western technologies and the Eastern sources of energy, have been cut one by one, and we don't see the replacement, to be honest. Therefore, this is really alarming and concerning to us, listening to colleagues speaking about decoupling and de-risking and further isolation of the Eastern and Western economies. And we don't want that, because that would further worsen our situation in Europe. We had a strategic goal back in Hungary, and that was to become a meeting point of East and West, a meeting point of the Eastern and Western economies. And you know what we see? The biggest German companies are working together happily with the biggest Chinese companies in Hungary. If this happens on the ground, then why do we want to break this kind of cooperation? Why do we want decoupling and de-risking instead of global cooperation? And if it worked in Hungary, I do believe it could work regionally and globally as well. And we hope, or we would hope, that we could take advantage of the existence of OSCE as a platform for the dialogue between East and West. What would be the other reason OSCE to exist, if not to talk to each other between the Eastern and Western colleagues? And I really do hope that we can turn the tide. We are in the 24th hour, that's not a question. And we do hope that the next period of time will be characterized by connectivity and global cooperation instead of creating blocks in the world again. Thank you.